Welcome to Mike's Automotive. Join me today as we do a brake job on this 2011 GMC pickup. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and take off this little hubcap. It's a 23 socket, it turns out to be on this one. These are just always going to be hand tight on here. Never ever use an impact or a ratchet to tighten these things down. You will break them. They are just plastic. We're just going to back them off. You see they hang loose when they're done. This is just a decorative cover so that everybody knows that you drive a GMC. Alright. And one more. And off she comes. Set that off to the side. You're going to want to head and grab, in this case it happens to be a 22. Go ahead and put that on our impact. Make sure that it is set. Always make sure that it's set. Run it in your hand. That's going the wrong direction. Always make sure you're going back off when you're doing these. Okay? Go ahead and grab a magnetic tray. Allow me to grab one. Nice. Go ahead and magnetize it to the vehicle. Okay, this is a fancy car, for instance, brand new Lexus or whatever, or even this car. Don't put it on the paint job. Go ahead and put it to the bumper here. That's fine. Go ahead and get you a work table over here. But let's not lose these. Okay? Make sure that you're all the way on the nut. Never start until it's seated. You're not in NASCAR, so you don't need to let these things go flying every which way. When they're all accounted for, go ahead and grab the tire, lift it off, set her down. Go ahead and set it under the vehicle in the case of doing a brake job. It's out of my way. I'm not going to lose it that way. I'm not going to be tripping over the blame thing either. Okay. Alright. Alright, so at this point we need to get the caliper off. Okay, and to do that, go ahead and grab the wheel. Now some wheels, the steering wheel will lock and you can't do this, but this one isn't one of them. Go ahead and turn the vehicle wheel so it's sitting as far out this way as you can, and we can get to the bolts on the back side. Both the caliper bracket bolts, which are here and here, and then of course the pins, which are here and here. I'm going to take some pictures of this up close with my other camera so you can see it better. Back in here, there are Allen heads that are covered with these two little plastic seals. We're going to use a pick to dig those seals out with, being very gentle, not to poke a hole in them, simply lift them out of their little bores they sit in. So here's the first one. Again, it's just a little plastic doodad dust cover in essence is what it is. We'll set that off to the side and take them both loose. Come back here. Now this one just happens to be a number 10 Allen socket. We can use a 3/8 drive ratchet for this. Go ahead and put it on. Make sure it's set appropriately. Nothing worse than doing this backwards. Takes quite a bit of oomph to break them loose to get them going. We are not, repeat, not going to be using impacts for this. When you own your own shop, you can do that. And if I was doing that by myself, I might consider doing that. But again, that's me on the hook for that. Okay? If you're not stout enough to do that on your own, not enough lead in your britches, as it were, we can use a piece of pipe for extra leverage. That would be fine. Always double check that you're going the right way before you put a pipe on it. I know how many times in my life I've done that. It is a real not treat to break something off and then have to fix it because you were going the wrong direction. Ask me how I know. one caliper pin out. Alright, when you're ready to take the caliper off, get a hanger or some other something else to hang it by. We typically use a bent up coat hanger in this class. They work nicely. When I was on the farm, I always used a piece of baling wire. Whatever you have handy will work. And a pinch, I guess you could ruin a zip tie and do it with a zip tie as well. What you do not want to do is have the caliper dangling by its hose. Not really a good thing to do. Okay? Go ahead and get your other caliper pin out. Finish taking it all the way out. I purposely left it part way in while I was finding a coat hanger to bend. They are typically supposed to be on our brake carts, but you never know with children, right? Okay, here we have the caliper pin is just about out. There she comes. Again, set that baby off to the side. At this point, grab your caliper, and we're going to go ahead and twist it a little bit towards ourselves and then away from ourselves. It has partly to do with that drives the calipers in just a little bit, which gives us a little bit of room. The pistons in rather, so I have just a little bit of room to get my caliper off. Now she should slide right off fairly easily. If it doesn't want to come, if it doesn't want to come off, go ahead and get your pry bar. Just pry up underneath of it like so to help it. So just take your pry bar, reach up under here, give it a little tap, a little push, and your caliper will come off. Okay. Once they're off, okay, you're going to inspect the face of the we're going to inspect the face of the calipers, see how they're doing, see if there's any damage to them. Then we're going to hang that baby off to the side. Go ahead and just hook it through there so it can sit, and it's not going to fall down. It's not going to hang by the cord at all. Okay, so that's just being completely 100% supported by that piece of wire. Okay. Now we turn our attention to the caliper bracket itself. So it's these two bolts here. Okay, so here we have all four pads. Here are the pads from the driver's side, and as you can tell, they have about equal thickness of padding left on them. Okay, fairly close. That is not true on the other side. Look at the disparity in the pad depth. Okay, now on this end it's not as pronounced. On this end it's way different. Okay, now this is the trailing piston has been sticking on this caliper. Okay, that's why. So the piston's been running kind of sideways, and so probably partly dragging the entire time, and that probably explains the majority of the noise the customer has been complaining about. Recommended that we change both calipers on both sides as a pair, and the customer went ahead and went with that suggestion. All right, so Alright, so now we are going to change the calipers out. So that requires us to take this caliper bracket off. Sometimes I take it off when I change pads, sometimes not. This particular style is easy to change these keepers. So unless the thing is completely rusted up or grossed up, I probably wouldn't take it off. These bolts are on tight. So you're going to have to man up a little bit, as it were. You may find yourself wanting to use a breaker bar. That's cool. If it's something that you physically cannot get off, and I come over there and I watch you and I say to myself, wow, that is pretty tight, and I try it, and yeah, it's pretty tight, I may allow us to use an impact to get them off. I do not want you just using impacts until you're told that it's okay to use them. in general, I never, ever, ever, ever want you see you using one unless I tell you to on this sort of bracketry. I don't want to break off a bolt in here at all, ever. The idea of that just makes me nauseous. See how big that bolt is? It's a monster. I never want to see that done. These particular bracket bolts I looked up earlier, they're supposed to be torqued to 221 foot-pounds, which means they're going to be stuck on there pretty good. I believe these have been done previously because they didn't seem near that tight. Okay? And there you have the caliper bracket. Okay? I'm going to spin this around here in a minute, and we're going to take a look at the new caliper up close and personal. Alright, so whenever you're doing brakes, putting on new equipment, make sure that you look for the part number on the box. If it's stated on the box, this one does not seem to be located here anywhere. Oh, here it is, right there. So right there you can see there's the part number. Now go back on Napa if you ever have a question to see which side this belongs on. We'll go look at that in a minute. Now, when you look at the caliper itself, here it is, okay? Remember, the bleed screw will always go on top. So this, we're looking at it from the back side. This is the left caliper, okay? I know that again because on the left side of the vehicle, on the driver's side of the vehicle, looking at the front of the vehicle, it sits like this, and that bleed screw will be on the top. Now, this is what we call a semi-loaded caliper. That is, it comes with, gosh, I have a hard time. It comes with the caliper bracket mounted to it. Okay, it comes in pieces like this. You still have to use the new brake pads that we ordered. So we'll be using those, but in this new setup. Okay, again, one of these pistons was dragging on the other one. It was sticking. It wasn't retracting all the way in, which means that the pad was sitting kind of cattywampus in here. And so one end of it was dragging a little bit all the time, and that was what was most likely causing all of her squealing that she was complaining about. All right, I've said it once, I'll say it again, and it bears repeating again and again and again. Whenever you get a new part, always look at the part number on the box. This is the one that says XB on it. This is the one for the left side. If you're not sure, compare it to the one you're taking off, number 1. And then number 2, always remember when this is sitting on the car, the bleed screw will always be in the up position. So this is definitely the one for the left-hand side of the car. Okay. Also note, this is what's referred to as a banjo bolt. This is where the brake fluid gets in. We'll put the brake line on in a few minutes. There is a copper washer. There's 2 of them on here. Okay. So how this works is you put one copper washer on first. You'll slide the hose bit over that, and then this goes on, and then together they screw in like so. It is imperative that this gets torqued down appropriately, otherwise you'll be leaking all day long. You can see right here in the middle of that bolt, there's a hole. That hole is where the brake fluid gets in, and then it comes down in here and fills this entire cavity full of brake fluid. Okay? When you push the pedal, you force more brake fluid in, something has to give, the pistons are forced out, and that squeezes the brakes, squeezes the caliper down, the pads down on the rotor, and you stop driving. Okay. So to put this on, we're going to take this apart. Again, we're going to take out these covers. We're going to take those Allen screws out, and we'll remove the caliper bracket that will go on the vehicle first, and then we'll slide. And then the pads will go into the caliper bracket, and then the bracket slides down over the top of those. We'll catch up with you in a second when I get this torn up. Alright, so now we're going to put our caliper on, caliper bracket on. It goes like this. You'll notice the curved part here fits over the top of the front of the rotor there, and it slides in behind there. Now, caliper brackets, one should always use some blue Loctite. I'm going to put the first one in. I'm just going to set it in there for right now to hold this in place. Okay, I'm going to put a little blue Loctite on this guy. Get the bottom one in first, and then we'll put some more blue Loctite on the top one as well. And blue, we don't want it to come off, but it will come off with tools. If you put red on, never use red, hardly ever use red, please. In your life, there's a few examples of places to use it, but that takes heat to get it off. So blue, you can take it off with regular tools, but it doesn't come off unless it's, helped a lot. Okay, so that's Just a nice way. We do not want our calipers falling off down the road. We kind of dig our brakes. They're kind of a cool thing to have. Yeah. Now, once we get them in here, I looked up our torque specs. For the torque specs for this, they are 221 foot-pounds. Okay? They do not want to come off, I promise you. You may need to have a little more lead in your pencil to tighten this up. If you're doing one of these brake jobs and you need some help, don't hesitate to ask for help pulling on that. Remember, it's nice, steady pulls, not jerks. There she goes. Double check the top one. There we go. Alrighty. That's pretty good. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to put in our pad clips. They are right here. They do come with the new pads. They also come with the new calipers. So if you just bought pads, they would send you new clips with the premium brake pads they do. Sometimes with the cheesy ones they don't. Now I looked at it before they came off. This little tab slides into that little hole right there. Push her down in there, make sure she's set in tight. Sometimes when you're staring at these, you're like, I can't figure it out. You just got it upside down or backwards, flip it around. It will fit in one of them. Okay? Been there, done that, stared at something for an hour, can't figure exactly how it goes. If you can't try it on one side, just turn that one, flip it around, and try it on the other side of the caliper, and you'll usually find a place that it'll just, for whatever reason, it's sitting in your hand funny and you can't visualize it. When you flip it over, all of a sudden, oh, there's where it goes. Sure. Okay. Here are our new pads. Remember we said that this piece here goes down in the caliper, so it's going to sit on the back side on this one, because clearly the pads have to face towards the rotor. Should fit in there nice and tight. Here's our other. And this one will go on the outside. Push one end in and then slide the front end like so. Beautiful. Okay. Now we're going to take and we're going to slide on our new caliper over the top of that caliper bracket. Okay. This is going to go on like so. Make sure that the little pin boots, make sure that they are not getting hung up when you put it on. They need to be pushed back a little ways. Push back a little ways. And now they're sitting more or less where they need to be. Remember when we took this off, we made sure we paid attention. And we said that this one here, without the extra little black piece, goes toward the top. Get that lined up. What you might find easier to do is to use the socket, our Allen socket, just by hand to help get started in the hole. Make sure that you don't drop these dumb calipers. It's less than optimal. Okay. There she goes. She's starting. Nice. Nice. Now let's get the bottom one in. So now you get to move it around a little bit, make sure the hole gets lined up. Now she's lined up good. And now take the ratchet and we'll go ahead and drive them in until they're snug. And then we'll come back and torque it down with a 3/8 inch torque wrench after that. Snugged up. Now, sometimes, and this bottom one was a perfect example of that, the Allen actually fits a little too tight to the socket, and the socket kind of keeps wanting to get stuck in there. You're going to have to make sure it gets solidly in there. The temptation is to not put it all the way in so it doesn't stick, and so you're not fighting with it. Don't do that. Make sure you go ahead and put it all the way in. If we have to, we'll have to bang it and tap it to get it back out. As far as the caliper bolts go, or the caliper pin bolts go, the torque for those is 74 foot-pounds. You're going to want to use this 3/8 ratchet on account of the fact that we only have a 3/8 inch drive Allen socket. Again, that's it right there, that temptation not to get it all the way in where it'll stick, okay? And I thought I was in, but I wasn't quite all the way in. Make sure you fix that, okay? Now, going forward, we're going to take the line off of this guy back here. But before I do that, I'm going to take a minute and make sure that I have enough fluid in the reservoir that we don't run out. That's pretty bad. When I did the other side, of course, there was going to be some drips. There's always going to be some drips. That's just how life goes. But I have to be careful that I do not run the master cylinder out of fluid as we're doing this. We didn't do it when it first came in because we didn't have the hood up. But now that the hood's going up, as you know, hood up, fender covers go on. Okay? Now, recall that brake fluid eats paint. So always, always, always bring a rag with you. Always, 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 always get a fender cover on. Bring the can of brake fluid over the front of the vehicle, not over the paint. Come over the front of the vehicle, get it in the engine compartment, be ready to go, then go ahead and fill the cylinder up, the reservoir up. Alright, so now we're ready to take the brake line off of the old caliper, which is right here. And I showed you where that banjo bolt was on the new one. You'll see in a minute here. Not much to see, it's going to break it loose. As soon as it's loose, you have to hurry a little bit because it will start to leak on you. Okay? You can use a ratchet, of course, if you like on that. I was using a box end wrench there so that I wouldn't slip or anything or hurt myself. 6-point socket would be very nice. Please don't use a 12-point socket on those because when they slip, and they will, you will end up monkeying the threads up. Now, this bottom copper washer will every time pretty much not want to come off. So take a screwdriver and pry it up a little bit. Fastest way to get it off is to take a pair of side cutters and just cut the thing. You cut it, you kind of stretch it and cut it at the same time. It gets mangled, then it comes off. Okay? Once it's off, old banjo bolt comes out. Oh crap, where's my new banjo bolt? Here it is. New banjo bolt and, where's my new banjo bolt? There it is. Typically one has the new banjo bolt by oneself, but again, there goes. Got top copper washer, got bottom copper washer, goes into the hole, and now we go ahead and put it on. Pro tip, normally one should have it sitting next to one's self so that one doesn't drip as much fluid out as possible. Okay? Go ahead and torque this baby. We'll tighten it up first. Now the idea with these is you need to crush that copper washer. Those copper washers, that's how they seal because they are, crushable. So the torque for those, I already looked it up, is 30 foot-pounds on this particular vehicle. That's not always true, of course. Make sure you look it up for your vehicle. Again, by doing this, what you're doing is you're crushing those washers and you're making it a nice, tight seal so that it will not let any more brake fluid out. Once we're done, we've got that cleaned up thoroughly, we'll go ahead and clean the area down with some parts cleaner. Okay? We don't want to leave brake fluid anywhere on the vehicle touching anything. Anytime we spill a little bit, we clean it up. Now it's twofold. First of all, to make kind of a mess. Second of all, and I think probably most important of all, freaks a person out when you look over there and all of a sudden you see brake fluid. And we have a leak again. No, we don't. In this case, we don't anyways. Now, when you make a mess on the floor, and you will, go ahead and take an older rag, not a brand new rag preferably, and clean it up so we aren't tracking it all over the blame shop. You will spill. The point is not about not spilling. The point is cleaning it up when you do. Okay, so now the last thing we need to do is bleed the brakes. Okay, so to do that, what we're going to do We're going to come in here, I'm going to grab this cart and this jug. This jug is used for a variety of things, but primarily it's just our catch jug. There's nothing really fancy about it. It looks fancy, but it's the way we're using it for this particular operation is not fancy. Go ahead and slide it over the bleed plug there, and take your wrench and loosen this baby up. Honestly, the first time I loosen one up, I typically use the box end of the wrench to break it loose. And then I slide the bleed plug, the hose over it, and then I'll use the open end of the wrench. I don't like to start them or finish tightening them with the open end for fear I might slip and damage it. What we're going to do now is we're going to sit tight and wait, and we're going to let gravity do its thing. Okay? When we do gravity bleeding, when we bleed brakes, we always like to start from the furthest location from the master cylinder. Master cylinder being right above me, right in front of you, inside the engine compartment. Okay? We're going to start with the right rear. That's the furthest from the vehicle, from the master cylinder. Then we're going to go to the left rear, which we wouldn't do this time because obviously we didn't do the backs. We're going to do the right front, which I already did, and then now on camera we're going to do this the left front. Now it's imperative as you're doing this that you get up, that you get as you're doing this, you make sure this hose is pushed down on the bleed plug nice and tight. Now what we're going to be doing, we're going to be looking for air bubbles in the line. So I'm going to be coming up here. I'm going to be shining my light on this. I'm going to be watching until the fluid starts to run out of here in a solid stream. Right now nothing is coming out yet, so we're just going to let gravity do its thing and be patient for a little while. Okay? Meantime, I'm going to shinny back up the ladder and top off the reservoir again. Something that bugs me a lot. Inside of these there is this little foil. When you open one, put your finger in. Make sure that you pull the foil out like this when you're done. The last person I just did one, they had not done that, and it was about impossible to pour fluid out of it when I got up here. Okay, if you have any brake fluid, if there are any greasy marks on the rotors, we're going to go ahead and hose them off. A little bit of brake clean. All right, make sure that we get all of any kind of residue from brake fluid and or grease and or dirt that you had on your hands. We want it off of the vehicle. Don't ever forget that. Don't want to mess up a brand new set of pads, or in the case of this was a brand new rotor, I wouldn't want to mess those up with grease or dirt or what have you. Mr. Groom, did you just wash your hands again? That's right. Cleanliness is next to godliness when it comes to brake jobs in particular. I don't want it on the rotors, I don't want it on the pads, I don't want it anywhere. Except brake fluid, I don't mind if brake fluid's in the reservoir, okay? Make sure you always top the reservoir off when you're finished. Never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, let it run out of fluid when you are doing the bleeding process. Okay? Next thing we're going to talk about is, of course, the final step, which will be, well, the final step before we take it for a spin. And that is we're going to make sure that our wheels are torqued to the appropriate amount. It is 140 foot-pounds for this particular car. Make sure that you check the specs for your car you're currently working on. Remember, if you don't have enough lead in your pencil to do this, make sure you get someone who can do it correctly. Make sure you always hold it from the edge, the end rather, of the wrench. Make sure that you're always in foot-pounds, not kilopascals or newton meters. Again, we're going crisscross pattern. When you think you've got them all, start one place, walk all the way around. Make sure you got them all. Never under any circumstances send a car out without torquing the wheels down, ever. And and this one is done. The other ones are identical. I will finish them off camera. Alright, I lied. Don't forget to put the hubcap back on. Line them up on there, push it on, and then just take this socket and just screw it on as if you're using a screwdriver. That's all you gotta do. You don't have to tighten them down overly tight. Come on, get on there, you hippie. And last one. Now everyone will know you're driving your GMC again.
That's all, folks.